Welcome to Dr. Dave's Diner. Real psychology for real people by a real psychologist. You have your coffee?
Never let fear drive the bus. When my oldest, who is now 16, was 2 years old, we were home a lot together. This means that we were watching a lot of Pixar films. In particular, a favorite of hers was Finding Nemo. We watched it over and over, and subsequently I had a lot of time to think through all the subplots and undertones that make it a wonderful story that it is. As I've moved beyond the entertainment value of the film and story, I've concluded that the movie isn't necessarily about finding Nemo. It's about redemption and how people, in this case fish and other sea life, will allow fear to prevent them from living. It was and is a very successful movie, but not because of its great animation or realistic underwater scenes. Rather, it's a great story because so many of us identify with the underlying story of loss and redemption. The story is set up when Marlin, Nemo's father, tragically loses his wife and all but one of his children. The rest of this story entails how Nemo and his dad transformed from living in fear to living life to its fullest despite the many threats. Initially, the tragedy shocked Marlin into believing and subsequently teaching his son that the world is not safe. Given his experience, it is understandable that Marlin might come to that conclusion. Some of you might even identify with Marlin. The untimely loss of a loved one can certainly put a damper on our outlook on life. For some, it can create deep-seated cynicism that etches into our identity and shapes how we participate in our relationships. The irony of Nemo is that despite the childlike quality of the movie, it contains some very mature themes, specifically our mortality. I don't mean to be morbid here, but throughout the movie Marlin is confronted with the threat of death, hearkening back to the reality of his original loss. First he is confronted by a mindless eating machine, shark, followed by a saber-toothed deep-sea monster, and ultimately ends up in the beak of a pelican. Throughout the story, Marlin tries to avoid his fear by incurring yet another loss. It's not until he is confronted with the reality that loss is unavoidable does he allow himself and his son Nemo to finally live. It is one of life's ironies. Often we live our lives trying to avoid the inevitable. In doing so, we miss out on a lot of life. When we are able to embrace all of what life has to offer, which includes loss, then we will be able to fully enter into our relationships and our lives. Don't let life's threats and hurts develop into cynicism or bitterness. Don't let them throw you into a state of panic or emotionally paralyze you. Rather, understand that life is full of joy and full of loss, and despite the loss, we can live life to its fullest, embrace our relationships, and find redemption in an otherwise painful situation. If you haven't seen Finding Nemo, watch it. If you've already seen it, then watch it again. You might find something other than Nemo.
I'm clinical psychologist David NieKamp, and you've been listening to Dr. Dave's Diner. You can find me at dr.daves.diner@gmail.com. Come back next week and bring a friend. We will serve you up something good. In the meantime, enjoy what life brings you one day at a time. We'll see you then.